اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب. إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ. فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق. خلق من ماء دافق. يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب. إنه على رجعه لقادر. يوم تبلى السرائر. فما له من قوة ولا ناصر. والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع. إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل. إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا. فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك بك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. برائے دیگر بلندتر صلوات.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم.
اماں کی نگاہوں سے میرا زخم چھپانا، اماں کی نگاہوں سے میرا زخم چھپانا، کہ بابا میرے سینے میں سنا ٹوٹ گئی ہے، اماں کی نگاہوں سے میرا زخم چھپانا، جی چاہتا ہے آپ کی تسلیم کو اٹھوں، رتبے کا تقاضا ہے کہ تعظیم کو اٹھوں، مشکل ہے مگر ہاتھ کلیجے سے ہٹانا، کہ بابا میرے سینے میں سنا ٹوٹ گئی ہے، اماں کی نگاہوں سے میرا زخم چھپانا، اس طرح کلیجے میں اتر آئی ہے برچھی، کہ سینہ نہیں ارمان بھی ماں کے ہوئے زخمی، کہ چاہا تھا میری ماں نے مجھے دولہا بنانا، کہ بابا میرے سینے میں سنا ٹوٹ گئی ہے، اماں کی نگاہوں سے میرا زخم چھپانا، میں جانتا ہوں ضد وہ بہت تم سے کرے گی، تنہا تمہیں زینب کبھی آنے نہیں دے گی، مقتل میں میری پالنے والی کو نہ لانا، کہ بابا میرے سینے میں سنا ٹوٹ گئی ہے، یہ سوچ کے اکبر کا پھٹا جاتا ہے سینہ، کہ آواز نہ سن لے کہیں معصوم سکینہ، سجاد کو آہستہ ذرا جا کے بتانا، کہ بابا میرے سینے میں سنا ٹوٹ گئی ہے، अम्मा की निगाहों से मेरा जख्म छुपाना, और अल्लाह करे लौट के तुम जाओ वतन को, मजबूरियां भाई की बता देना बहन को, तुम मेरी तरफ से उसे सीने से लगाना, कि बाबा मेरे सीने में से ना टूट गई है, अम्मा की निगाहों से मेरा जख्म छुपाना। बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
बार दीगर बुलंदतर सलावात।
الله نشود لال به هنگام ممات، هر زبانی که فرستد به محمد صلوات. این حسین کیست، این حسین کیست که عالم همه دیوانه اوست. این چه شمیست، این چه شمیست که جانها همه پروانه اوست. ای که با خون گلویت، ای که با خون گلویت شده قرآن تفسیر، آیه آیه شده اوراق تنت از شمشیر، و تنت آیه نوشتن ز شمشیر، ولی جمله جمله همه را نقطه نهادن به تیر. پسرانت همه در راه خداوند شهید، دخترانت همه بر یاری اسلام اسیر. اونچه گفتند و نگفتند رسولان خدا، گشت با خون دل و خون گلویم تفسیر. جانفشانی به سر و دست تو دارد از شوق، که به پیکان بلا خنده زنند کودک شیر. به نماز تو بنازم که پس از ذکر سلام، میسم از حنجره سوخته فریاد زند. این حسین کیست که عالم همه دیوانه اوست. این چه شمیست که جانها همه پروانه اوست. دل هر کس که حسینیست ز خود بیخبر است. کشته عشق حسین از همه کس زنده تر است. بس که آن جلوه توحید مرا در نظر است، هر کجا می نگرم نور رخم جلوه گر است. هر کجا می گذرم جلوه مستانه اوست. این حسین کیست که عالم همه دیوانه اوست. صلوات.
احسن. بار دیگر بلندتر صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
ایک اور بحوالے پر انداز سلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
آسان نہیں پڑھنا نوحہ علی اکبر کا، آسان نہیں پڑھنا نوحہ علی اکبر کا، آسان نہیں پڑھنا نوحہ علی اکبر کا، سرور سے کوئی پوچھے مرنا علی اکبر کا، لیلا نے کہا رو گئی کس طرح کروں رخصت، لیلا نے کہا رو گئی کس طرح کروں رخصت، میں دیکھ کے جیتی ہوں چہرہ علی اکبر کا، 18 برس جس نے پالا علی اکبر کو، ارے دیکھے وہ پھوپھی کیوں کئی لاشا علی اکبر کا، مرنے کو آزادارو یہ ظلم ہی کافی ہے، نیزے سے ہوا زخمی سینہ علی اکبر کا، یا شاہ نجف بڑھ گئے اب آپ سہارا دے، یا شاہ نجف بڑھ گئے اب آپ سہارا دے، ارے سرور سے نہیں اٹھتا لاشا علی اکبر کا، دہلیز پہ سر رکھے آنسو لیے آنکھوں میں، دہلیز پہ سر رکھے آنسو لیے آنکھوں میں، بیمار بہن دیکھے رشتہ علی اکبر
کا لیلا نے کہا سغرا اکبر تو نہیں پلٹے لیلا نے کہا سغرا اکبر تو نہیں پلٹے تسکین کو لائی ہوں کرتا علی اکبر کا اس دل میں فرید اپنے بس ایک حسرت ہے پڑھتے ہوئے مر جائے نوحہ علی اکبر کا آسان نہیں پڑھنا نوحہ علی اکبر کا ارے سرور سے کوئی پوچھے مرنا علی اکبر کا
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ. Is student Ali Najfi or Zahra Najfi, if they are here, we can have their speech. Otherwise, we will start with our program with Maulana today. I just want to remind on Ashura Day, it's a Wednesday, so the school parking may not be available on that day. So if we can do a little park, carpool, and then on that day, in the morning, afternoon, we might be a little crowded. So I'll ask Maulana to come to the member in the loudest of your 3 salawat.
پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
Let's recite Surah Fatiha for all of our marhumin, marhumat, all Muslimin, Muslimat, from among our loved ones, those who have passed away because of this tragedy of Hurricane Matthew, and all those who have given their blood for the way of Islam. Fatiha. It's also come to my attention that there's a member, a sister in the community who is not feeling well. I believe her name is Sister Anis Dot. So let's recite Am-Najib 5 times together for her, inshallah, and for anyone else who's in need of our du'as and who needs a quick and speedy recovery. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Amma yujibu mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. 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 Salawat ala Nabi.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجهم
ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين للتراب مقدمه الفدا ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد. For the love of Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein, send Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're continuing our discussion. Our subject is the successful woman, how to build up our Iman. We've gone through now a few different verses of Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23. The last one that we had started was ayat number 3, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. And those who keep away, they stay away, they don't get involved with things which are love, things which are useless, unproductive, and are a waste of time. We mentioned a few different ideas about what that meant. We talked about how one of the points, according to some of the mufassirin of the Quran regarding this verse, is the point is not just to keep away from everything in the dunya, but to take everything in your life and try to make it meaningful. Take your job, your education, you're raising your family, whenever you're driving, even things as mundane and as superficial as watching movies, playing games, TV, all these things, we can turn into something which is beneficial for ourselves. And we gave the formula for this yesterday. We said then, there's some other riwayat that mention that one of the other examples of love is music, is ghina. So we got into that discussion. First thing we asked is, what is love? What is music? So what is ghina? Does it actually mean all music or not? We said that no, that's not the way that it's defined. There is no word in Arabic, in that fusha, fasih Arabic for music. It doesn't exist like that. We gave the definitions according to our ulama, and basically, ghina means a specific kind of haram music or haram singing, something like that, or certain haram songs. And we said the criteria, the milak, to determine what's haram and what's halal, is basically whether something is going to be lahu or la'ib. We said the meaning of that, literally translated, means entertaining or amusing. But when we actually look into it, what it means is that it's something which is going to take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or make you forget about Allah. If that takes you away from Allah, then it's haram and you can't listen to it. If you're unsure if it's haram or not, then you are allowed to listen to it. But if it's something which is very clear, based on the lyrics, based on the place that this kind of music would be played, based on the association of like the sin with that kind of music, then it's clearly haram and you can't listen to that. Then we raised one question before we ended yesterday. We said, okay, some people might say, listen, I listen to music that has cursing, it talks about drugs and violence, and it's misogynistic and it objectifies women. It doesn't have an effect on me. Like, what's the big deal? Like, I can listen to music that has a beat, has a dance beat, and I don't dance. It's not a problem. I can control myself. It doesn't affect me at all. So where do all these rulings come in for them? So we have to try to see if we can answer that tonight, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Okay, so first a disclaimer. We're going to go through some science stuff here. It's going to be some medical stuff. And I know there's a bunch of doctors here. And throughout the past few nights, I've managed to upset husbands and fathers. I think the youth are on my side so far. Those who are a bit more conservative and traditional, maybe they don't like me as much. But tonight it's probably the doctor's turn. I think you might be a little upset tonight. So the disclaimer is this. I'm not a doctor, obviously, right? I don't have any medical training at all. I've done some research on the subject, as far as I could, and I've tried to check it. And other medical experts, doctors, have listened to this same speech before. And, they didn't kill me afterwards. So either they were really, really nice about it, or I actually was saying something correct. I'm not sure which. But I could be making mistakes. And most likely, I'm not going to give you the full picture of what we're going to talk about today. And that's okay. Obviously, you need to talk to the doctors here if you want the full picture, right? You have many here. The whole point of what I'm about to get into is just to argue and to prove, or to argue with this point and object to the point of music doesn't affect you. That's what we're trying to discuss here, okay? That's it. So first thing we have to figure out, okay, music is what? Music is just sound. In the most general sense, it's just a bunch of sounds, right? Okay. Now what is sound? Sound is vibration, right? This vibration is typically transmitted in wave form. So the sound, it gets transmitted, it's usually in waves. It needs a medium, which is either air or water, whatever. It can come through walls, doesn't really matter. And then it hits our bodies. And then specifically, we associate it with hitting our ears, okay? So these waves, they hit our ears. What happens? The eardrums then kind of transform them into these like these physical waves, if I'm not mistaken. And then from there, they get transformed into electrical nerve impulses, which then get sent to the brain. And again, I already know the doctors are like thinking, hold on a sec, he's missing something there. That's okay, right? This is not a medical course, don't worry. I'm giving you, let's say, khulasa, I'm giving you a summary, basically. Okay, so now we got these electrical nerve impulses being sent to our brain. Each sound that we hear, each type of music, every kind of song, whatever it is, it's going to vary and it's going to have a lot of different features. You're all aware of these things. It doesn't matter what kind of music, what kind of sound, poetry, whatever it is. Even voices, when we speak, it's the same thing. Sound has these different qualities. There's pitch, there's timbre, there's frequency, volume, key, all these different features which make up and differentiate sounds, right? So based on that, and depending on how we specifically and personally also receive these sounds, we're going to be affected differently. That's one general rule. Okay, for example, when you hear things like lullabies, nursery rhymes, sounds of the ocean, things like that, for the most part, say 99% of us are going to be affected the exact same way, right? Nobody gets charged up when they hear, like, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? It's not like a dance song, obviously, right? You hear that, or you sing a lullaby to your child, it's there to put them at rest, put them, to calm them down, right? Same thing. A lot of people nowadays, when they can't sleep, they have these apps to put on ocean sounds, like these calming ocean sounds, or the waves, or waterfall, whatever. They put this on so that they can calm themselves down and go to sleep. Now, on the other side, we have things like heavy metal, guitar sounds, car alarms, air horns, your phone alarm, all of these things. Obviously, again, 99% of us, you're not going to activate those or listen to that if you want to go to sleep, right? It's there to get you charged up, right? It activates you a little bit. So what's the point? Based on different types of frequencies and sounds and wavelengths, it's going to affect our bodies differently, right? And people who manufacture and design these things, they know that, right? If you look at, for example, when you go to whoever's been to whatever, a game, football game, basketball, baseball, whatever. When you go there, they obviously, when they want to get people hyped up, they don't play like Happy Birthday. They don't do that, right? They play, sometimes haram music, whatever. They play something according to a certain key and frequency so that people get pumped up. The crowd gets pumped up, the cheerleaders get pumped up, and then, of course, the players get pumped up. That's the idea. It's trying to build you up. Same thing with military music, right? It's trying to get the soldiers, give them a morale boost. Okay. Now here comes the medical stuff. So we got that so far. It's a bunch of sounds, a bunch of waves. They have differences. They affect us. Okay, now what? These effects come on. We have a nervous system. I think you guys agree with that, I hope. There's different types and different parts of the nervous system. The one that we're going to focus on is called the ANS, which is the autonomic nervous system, right? So this autonomic ANS, the autonomic nervous system, is divided into two parts. One is the sympathetic, the SNS, and then the parasympathetic, PNS, right? Okay. Now, this system together, they're not opposites. It's not the sympathetic is not opposite of the parasympathetic. They work together, they're kind of complements of each other, and they work at specific times. Together, they control many different functions in our body. Your heart rate, digestion, your respiratory rate, your salivation, perspiration, pupil dilation, urination, all these different functions all can come under the power of your ANS, which is either your parasympathetic or sympathetic. I feel like I'm giving a medical lesson here. It's boring me now. Okay, we're going to get through it, don't worry. Maybe we need a salawat ala Muhammad. Only a few more minutes and we'll get past the medical stuff, trust me. All right. So each of these things have a different function. Now, let's give an analogy. All right. Let's say you get an order, or let's go through the work analogy, right? You get an email from your boss, right? Okay, I need this project, I need this report on my desk within let's say 1 week. Okay, 1 week, you file that, like, okay, I have some time. this work will probably take me maybe a day or two to do. So I've got some time, I can start it a couple days later. Fine. Another time your boss will send you a message like, listen, I need this on my desk stat, ASAP, before the end of the day, something like that. So when that happens, then your body kick into gear, right? You change things. Okay, I gotta take this, the other stuff I was doing, and put that aside. I gotta start working on this project right away, something like that. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic are similar to kind of that analogy. The sympathetic is basically your emergency system, your flight or fight, your survival system. It increases your heart rate, it gets your adrenaline going, it gets your breathing going, it gets you pumped, right? Because there's going to be certain times, for example, a fire alarm goes off, right? Now you need that adrenaline pump, you need your blood rushing to your feet, you need to run, right? You need to do something. Or let's say, well, I guess it depends what kind of animal. But some of us, if you hear like a lion roar, then you need to get that mode. But some of us, if you see an ant, right, it'll freak you out, you probably have to go run away from that too, right? Depends on which freaks you out. That's the sympathetic. Again, it just gets you charged up, and it's like a short-term system, right? Get you going to get out of that harm. The parasympathetic is basically for every other situation, meaning whenever you need to just calm down and do everyday stuff. Like what? Basically, when you need to digest stuff, right? Your basic breathing, all these types of functions. So it's when your system is basically at rest, right? So it's either you're in emergency mode, right? You're like in freak out mode, or you're just in your rest, your normal, your calm mode. That's it. So that's the sympathetic, the survival one. Parasympathetic, your normal. Okay. Now, any doctor hopefully will tell you here that the body always wants one thing. That's called homeostasis. Yeah? Okay, good. You're nodding your head. That's good. Homeostasis means that you want to be like chill all the time, right? You don't want to be in freak out mode all the time. And you also don't want to be calm all the time, right? When a fire alarm goes off, your body needs to have, be working functionally properly so that you know that you need your blood pumping, you need the adrenaline, so you can get out of that situation. At the same time, if let's say you're about to go to sleep, right, or let's say you just ate, and you're trying to digest a burrito, I don't know, whatever, you don't want your body freaking out, right? You want it to be calm so it can digest properly, right? You want the energy and everything to be distributed accordingly. So here's the issue here. Music, certain types specifically, will stimulate the SNS, the sympathetic nervous system, meaning your emergency mode. That mode that gets your adrenaline pumping, right? So what happens there is because of that, because it's not a normal stress function for you, right? Okay, when your body's in stress, when it's a stressful situation, that's when you want your SNS, the sympathetic, your fight or flight system, that's when you want it to kick in. Music is not a stress-related incident, but it's forcing your body to feel like that. So you're getting forced adrenaline rush, a forced blood pumping, all these things. Your body is not in homeostasis anymore. It's kind of out of whack. That happens more often than it should. Then your body's going to move away from that balance that it wants, and that's going to cause certain disorders. I'm giving you whatever medical research that I've looked through here, right? So what happens? Here are some symptoms. Again, this is from medical literature. None of this stuff is what I'm saying, which is in hadith. This is from medical literature. Some things are high blood pressure, hypertension, insomnia, anger, rage, diabetes, Parkinson's, headache, trouble breathing, swallowing, memory loss, mental disorders such as mania, depression, random laughter, and nonsensical speech. Basically, you can end up turning into the Joker, right? If you listen to too much music. That's what's kind of saying here. Now, if somebody wants to go ahead after all this, with the medical evidence and literature that's there, and say, no, music doesn't affect me. Say, hold on a second. We just mentioned something, the effects given your ANS, your autonomic nervous system. That little prefix there, auto, should give you a clue about what's the issue here. These things are not in your control. If something is automatic, and again, I know that not 100% of things in the ANS are automatic, but again, it's what we're talking about here. If something's automatic, you have no control over it. It's as if somebody were to say, they take a sip of poison, right, some rat poison or whatever, and after it, they would say, okay, I'm going to stop the digestion, and I'm going to stop it from messing up with my body system. You have no say in that. Your body then is going to take care of everything. Once you sip it, that's it. It's done. It's over. The same way, as we had mentioned, you have no control over the sound waves. These sounds, they hit your body, they go into your ear, and they get changed into electrical impulses and sent to your brain. There is no my free will involved in that. These things are nothing but cause and effect. This is all medical science. We have nothing to do with that. When it hits you, it affects you. And we can give even more examples. If you can send a salawat ala Muhammad wa
Everybody, do another salawat for Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
So this principle it's not just limited and doesn't just apply to music, those specific sounds. It can be any sound. So now let's take it back to speech. Somebody swears at you, or they insult you, right? We like to say that, we're not going to get affected by it. We very well know that when somebody insults us, they insult somebody we love, right? We get affected. We definitely get affected. One story. So it's not I don't know if it's a real story or not, but it's a story. I'm just going to call it a story for now. So this one member of a community invites all the different individuals over to his house for dinner, right? So there's some, different people of different jobs, different walks of life. There's one there who's a doctor, and he happens to be pretty atheistic, right? Among them is also the scholar of the community too. So in the middle of the conversation, one of the individuals says, there's somebody in our community who's not doing well, so we should all pray for them. So this doctor starts laughing. It's like, what are you guys talking about? What kind of joke is this? If you want this guy to get healed, you bring him to me. I'm the one who's in charge of these things, right? If he's got an issue, right? I'm going to give him medicine. I'm going to prescribe. I've got to do this stuff. What is your prayer? What are these words going to have an effect on anybody? So the scholar, right, because he's a scholar, wise man, he's like, so you're saying that these things have no effect? Like our prayers and these du'as, they have no effect? He's like, no, it's medical science, right? It has nothing to do with this hocus-pocus spirituality stuff. He's like, okay, fine. He's like, I can tell your mother must have been this stupid for a child as stupid as you to have been created. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, your mother must have been some materialistic, egotistical, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on insulting this person's mother. Like, that's why such a dumb individual like you was born. So then he gets livid, his face gets red, he clenches his fist, he gets up and is ready to punch the scholar in the face. And the scholar starts laughing at him. He says, calm down, I was just messing with you. He's like, what? What do you mean messing with me? He's like, take a look at yourself right now. He's like, your fist is clenched, your face is red, full of blood, and you can't control yourself. He's like, are you saying that words can't affect people? He's like, why do my words just affect you right now? You weren't in control of that. He's like, so negative words can definitely affect you. Are you saying positive words can't affect? No. So, and there's other studies that have been done regarding this too, but those I don't want to mention because I think we're done with the medical stuff for tonight.
صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد.
And this same message of positive words, of reciting specific things to heal us, has been mentioned all over in our Islamic texts. So for example, chapter 17, Surah Isra, verse 82. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So we've sent down this Quran, from the Quran, what? مَا هُوَ شِفَاء. Things which are like a shifa for you, they're healing for you, they're medicine for you. And rahmat lil mu'mineen. For mu'mineen specifically, right? Not for everybody, right? Because you can recite Quran to somebody who doesn't believe in it and it won't heal them. But for somebody who has iman in their heart, who knows that Allah has sent this down as a means for healing, then it can heal their heart. What do we say when we recite Dua Kumail towards the end? We say, وَذِكْرُهُ shifa. Your dhikr, Allah's dhikr is shifa as well. Just think about Him and it can calm your heart, it can heal you. And again, as a disclaimer, we're not saying don't take aspirin and don't take medicine. That's there too, obviously. But we have two different causes always at work in reality. You have physical causes, the material causes, and you have metaphysical and immaterial causes. That's the case. But I'm sure you guys already knew that. I didn't have to explain. Now look at things like Dua Joshan al-Kabir. Right? These, all these different lines. And if you look into each of them, we're used to only reciting it on Laylatul Qadr, right? But if you look into it, each of these lines, there's a specific ailment, a specific disease that it says if you recite this line in this specific way, this will help, for example, with pain in your kidney. This line, like number 45, is for pain in your eyes. This one's for your headaches. This one's for if your knees hurt. Everything has been mentioned specifically in our books that this specific line is meant for this thing. And again, by saying take your aspirin too, but take this as well. Right? It's not going to hurt you, obviously. And if you have iman in this type of thing, then you know that Allah is saying, I'm giving you this stuff to help you out. Of course you do that. And this is the natural way we're doing. We recite Amma Yujib. We ask people to make dua for us because we know it has an effect. And of course we want to do that for ourselves. And this is why, perhaps why, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, when he talked about the Holy Prophet, he mentioned him, the line he uses for him is really, really interesting. He said about the Prophet, he says, Tabib dawarun bitib. He's a doctor going around with his medicine. Now, usually, how do doctors work? You come to them, right? They're sitting in their offices. They sit in the hospital, in the clinic. You go to them when you have a problem. But he said the Prophet was somebody different. The Prophet was a doctor who went around with medicine. He was going after, he saw people had physical and spiritual diseases, and he brought his medicine with him. And he continues. He had all these tools and ointments ready made for people's wounds, the things which, and how to disinfect the diseases and whatever possible. He cured the blindness of their hearts. He cured the deafness of their ears, the dumbness of their tongues. And he prescribed medicine for all those who were living in a state of confusion and wandering because they didn't utilize the nur, the light of hikmah, of wisdom, for understanding the reality around them. And thus, they were forced to live like animals, wandering about. This is the way the Prophet has been described by Imam Ali nonetheless, right? This is the way that we also need to be in our lives as well. I know we sometimes get involved with individuals that kind of try our patience, and test us, and they do some weird stuff. And we expect people to come and, apologize to us, take that kind of road. The Prophet has set an example for us, and of course all the Ma'asumi, alayhi salam, that you go around, you need to be the doctor for them, you go around with your medicine. If, let's say there's an issue between family members, somebody cuts off relations from you for whatever reason, you go and fix it. You become the doctor, like the Prophet was, you go to them with the medicine. You always maintain connections, things like this. Always be the one who's trying to solve situations. Don't take a backseat on these kinds of things. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala So this will end our discussion on love and keeping away from things which are useless and wasteful. So hopefully that discussion was understood. Now the next ayat. This is ayat number 4, right? Ayat number 4 of Surah Mu'minun. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. Okay, so literally it's saying, and what we're talking about, who's a successful mu'min? Number 3 characteristic is that they are the doers, they're the performers, the fa'il of zakat. Okay, now we have to figure out what do you mean doers and performers of zakat? Right? This is what we're going to have to discuss, inshallah. First thing we need to figure out, okay, what is zakat? What does this actually mean? It's something that, especially among Shias, is really, really confusing, right? One of the questions that I believe somebody even here raised it on the first night, how come Shias don't pay zakat? Why don't we do that? How come it's only like Ahlul Sunnah? Why don't we pay zakat? Zakat is what's mentioned in the Quran. Where's khums? It's not there. So what's the issue? Inshallah, if we have time tonight, we'll get to that, if not tomorrow night. In Islamic law, zakat has one meaning, and that's exactly what we think about, right? This tax, this paying and spending in a certain way on items that we own. In Arabic, like the asl, the original Arabic, the root meaning, it actually means purity and cleanliness, right? So that's why from zakat we get words like tazkiyah, right? Purification. When you do tazkiyah nafs, when you purify your soul, it's coming from this root word of zakat. That's the idea. So then what's this connection and meaning that we have? Where do we get paying from purification? How does this two work? So think about it like this. Wudu is a purification for your body. Salah is a purification for your soul. Zakah is a purification for your property, for the things that you own. This is one way to look at it. That's why it's been mentioned specifically like that. Okay. So now we have basically 2 definitions in our mind. We have one of just kind of giving tax, right? This Islamic tax. And the other one is just generally just purifying yourself and trying to work on yourself. Okay, so the question is, what meaning does Allah intend over here when He's saying, those who perform and do zakat? What is He talking about here? Over here, we see that there's actually 3 different opinions among the mufassirin, those who are commentators on the Quran. We'll try our best to go through all these different types of views. Okay. First view is this, is the one that we talked about as the first meaning. Allah's talking about the wajib zakat, the one that you've got to pay on your property. Why? What's their evidence? They say, okay, what did we mention 2 ayats before that? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Right? He mentioned salah. Now, how does that help us? They say that, listen, salah and zakat, they're like best friends, right? They're always together. Like 2 guys, they're inseparable. Right? وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Right? It's always together when it comes in the Quran. When it talks about the wajib salah, then it will almost always mention that wajib zakat right after that. So that's their evidence. They said, listen, we just talked about salat 2 ayats ago, so of course it's going to be about wajib zakat. Why wouldn't it be? So from that, I wanted to share, just related to this idea of zakah, just to make us understand the importance of that, to share one hadith from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu in regards to people who try to dissuade us from paying zakah. So it says, Man mana'a قِيرَاطًا مِنَ الزَّكَاةِ. Whoever tries to stop you and dissuade you and convince you not to give even one small amount, like a carrot, it's nothing, even a small amount of zakat, if they're telling you don't even pay this, what happens? فَلَيْسَ هُوَ بِمُؤْمِنٍ. This person's not even a mu'min. And then he adds it, he says, وَلَا Muslim. In fact, this person's not even a Muslim. And then he makes it even worse. He says, وَلَا كِرَامًا. Not a mu'min, not a Muslim. In fact, this person has no dignity at all. Right? Somebody who's trying to dissuade us from helping individuals who are in need, right? The fuqara, the people who are in need in our community. Allah's provided us with the means. Alhamdulillah, we get a little bit of extra risk, right? We're beyond our means. We have, we have our cars, we have a house, we have a family. We're taking care of them, and we have a bunch of luxuries in our house. And then somebody's trying to dissuade us and say, listen, don't help these poor people out. They're just gonna buy drugs or they're gonna waste it. They don't know how to spend their money. Like, don't waste your time doing that. So many times in the Quran and in the Hadith where these people are probably some of the most demonized people in the Hadith. Some of the worst of the worst. Imagine a person who's saying, don't help people in need. Right? It's very, very difficult. So one thing. Okay. So this was one view about wajib zakat. That's what the meaning is here. So the other mufassirin, the commentators come and say, sorry, we don't like that. We don't agree with that. Well, what's the problem? Like, we object. What's the objection? Say, okay. We have, the Quran was revealed basically in two different places, right? Either it was revealed in Mecca or in Medina, right? So either before the Prophet's hijrah or after. So either it was before when the Prophet was and the Muslims were kind of under siege by the kuffar while they're in Mecca, or it happened afterwards when there was a developed and established Islamic state in Medina, right? So what's the difference? Typically, what you see is the Meccan ayat, the ones that were revealed in Mecca, usually have to do with the usul al-din, right? Like principles of tawheed and adala, nubuwa, imama, ma'ad, qiyamah, stuff like that. General things about hidayah and guidance. Medina, when the actual religious state was established, okay, now we can actually establish some rules. Let's talk about, rules about the armies. Let's talk about general organization, the rules for prayers. That's when all those things came down. So all those, I think it's about 500 or so ayat in the Quran about rules, Islamic law and Sharia. It's typically ones which were revealed in Medina. So what's the point of this? They say that everybody agrees Surah Mu'minun was revealed in Mecca. What's the problem though? If it's revealed in Mecca, then that means it can't be an Islamic law you're talking about. And they know 100%, at least that's what they claim, is that the rules for zakat, the wajib one that we're trying to talk about, that was revealed in Medina. That happened after they had an established Islamic state. So how can you say it's the wajib zakat? It didn't exist back then in Mecca. So it can't be that. So then this is where the second view comes in. They say that it's not that wajib zakat that you're talking about. Instead, it's that general kind of meaning of charity. Right? Zakat meaning just kind of giving away money, like sadaqah and things like that. So, sallu ala Muhammad wa So they said this, okay, back then, during that time in Mecca, because things weren't as strict, because they couldn't have that kind of sharia and those rules. What happened then is that the Prophet Islam was trying to encourage people to give something away, right? But it wasn't specified. It wasn't that give away 2.5% or 5%, or it has to be from this thing or that thing, or your savings or income. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a general thing, like if you've got extra, help people who are in need. That was the basic idea. So I want to share another hadith. This one is from the famous khutbah of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salatu wasalam. And she says, Allah made iman, she made faith as a means to do tazkiyah, it means to purify you from shirk, from believing in more than one God. He made salat, prayers, as a means for you to keep away from kibr, takabbur, and pride. And He made zakat wajib. Why? For purifying your heart and soul, and for increasing your risk. People dissuade us from wanting to help individuals, even in the smallest amount, even that mustahab sadaqah that we should be giving as much as possible. Even, alhamdulillah, many of us gave in the form of sadaqah our blood yesterday. And according to one of them, that means whatever we gave yesterday, 3 lives were saved because of that. It's a big deal that, alhamdulillah, a lot of the mu'mineen, mu'minat, they gave that away to help mu'mineen, mu'minat. So Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam is saying that Allah has made zakat wajib so that it can clean your heart, it can clean your soul, and it'll actually increase your risk. Now, this is, again, if our iman is not strong, it's going to be tough to understand. This is one of these spiritual rules. It's not a physical rule. The physical rule is you got money, you give it away, it's gone. You lose it. Allah saying, no, no, no. That's a physical rule in the world. I've got a higher level rule for you. If you give something away, but it has to be fi sabilillah, right? Not that you go and like buy ice cream for yourself, right? That doesn't count. If you give it away in the way of Allah, I'm gonna pay you back, and then I'm actually gonna give you more. And anyone, and I guarantee anybody here who has done this, you know that's how it works. Myself, I had, let's say, some shak before I wanted to go on Hajj. And I was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I mean, I was kind of struggling with my job. I was trying to pay off my college loans and everything. I was like, okay, like, am I going to be able to do this? Like, Allah, like, I want to go see you, right, in Makkah, Medina. Like, you're nice. I like you and everything, but I need that money. Like, I got to pay off my loans. Like, this is not a joke. And I'm not even, this is not an exaggeration, right? Before, I can mention stories about people I don't know, and it doesn't make sense. This is a personal story I'm sharing. When I needed this to happen, at that moment, I literally got the exact amount of projects I needed for work that totaled to the amount that I needed to go on Hajj. Exactly, it worked exactly like that. I needed, back then when I went, it was about 5,700 back then, right? And I went in like 2008 or 9. I literally had enough projects for work, and it happened within the span of like a few weeks, maybe a month, so that I'd be able to go that next upcoming Hajj season. Right? Like, that's just the way it works. And it required me, obviously, to give away some things at that moment, right? We needed a masjid built in New Jersey. All these things happened. I know other brothers as well who, same way, they weren't sure. We were doing a fundraising drive for some people who were in need in the tri-state area in New York. And one brother, he had to share his story because it was that important. He said, I'm a student, I'm a medical student, I'm in need of the money. He's like, but I saw that there was a fundraiser going on. I had to give something away. So he gave a little bit away. He said, I'm not joking with you. He's like, after that, I literally got my tax return back the next day, and it was the exact amount that I needed to make up for everything and more. So sometimes Allah even works with the IRS if He wants to, right? We don't like it, but Allah can work that way. Doesn't mean we have to like the IRS or accept what they do, but Allah can work in mysterious ways, right? Sallallahu alaihi So that's the second view now, right? So first view was that in this ayah, Allah's talking about the wajib zakat. The other mufassirin come and say it's not going to work, it's impossible. What he's talking about is just generally giving away money to help poor people out. Okay. But then, as usual, there's always ikhtilaf, right? Then a third group comes and says, you first two guys, you guys are crazy. Well, they don't say that, I'm saying that. Said, you guys, what are you talking about? That's not what this ayah is talking about. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's not talking about that kind of zakat at all. It has nothing to do with money. Like, okay, nahnu abna'u dalil, right? Okay, give us your dalil, and we'll believe in that. Show us your proof, okay? No problem. What did we say? So let me go back to the Arabic. And again, for those who don't know Arabic, I'm going to try to break it down so it makes sense. It says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ. So those who, لِلزَّكَاةِ, so for their zakat, فَاعِلُونَ. Fa'il comes from fa'ala. Fa'ala means to do, to act, right? To perform. Fa'il means somebody who is performing, an actor or a doer, performer, right? So it's literally saying those who perform zakat. So then they say, hold on a sec. Whenever Allah mentioned, we said aqimu salat, what do you say? Atu zakat. When they give, when they pay zakat, he's not talking about paying here. He's not talking about giving. He's saying doing. How can you say doing zakat is paying? That doesn't make sense. You don't have good evidence for that. So based on that, these mufassirin say that's why this is about tazkiyah nafs. This is talking about purifying yourself and trying to build your soul up, right? Destroying the ego, these kinds of concepts. This, inshallah, will be our discussion tomorrow. We hear this concept all the time, tazkiyat nafs. Improve yourself, purify yourself, clean yourself. Like, what are you talking about, right? We've been trying to do over these past few nights is break down all these concepts that we've been hearing year after year after year. Concept about taqwa and iman, about being a Muslim, about lahu, about salat and khushu, all these concepts that we've heard that maybe haven't been broken down in kind of a simplified way for us. Hopefully, inshallah, tomorrow, if Allah grants us tawfiq, then we can try to break down this idea and get some practical tips. How can I actually start on this path of tazkiyah? How can I actually start purifying myself, right? Provided that we actually want to do that, which I'm sure everybody here wants to do. So that'll be our discussion tomorrow, including the discussion on why don't Shias pay zakat, going back to the idea of paying zakat in the first place. Why don't Shias do that? And that will be our discussion for tomorrow. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So as we're nearing closer to the day of Ashura, our time together is limited, of course. So if there are any specific, again, issues that people would like raised before our time together ends, please let me know. I've tried to include whatever questions people have raised in the lectures as much as possible. But obviously, there are certain points that people have raised that, again, weren't really meant for the members, so I couldn't address it from there. But if we have time, if we feel necessary, on our final night together, which would be Thursday night, I believe, some of those other leftover issues or anything additional that you guys like either further explained or corrected or some other random issue that we didn't talk about, and inshallah we can try to address it then. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think every single one of us in our hearts have these desires that we always say, we wish we could have been with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We wish we could have sat in a class, a dars with Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. We wish we could have joined in battle with Imam Hassan or Imam Ali alayhi salam. All these different things. We wish we could have been there with the later Imams and defended them from the Abbasids. We have these desires in our heart. And of course, not just as Shia, but as Muslims in general, every single one of us wish we could have been and seen the Holy Prophet. Everybody wants to have and had that tawfiq and that blessing to do that. But unfortunately, we don't have that blessing. Of course, even people who came after the Prophet, right? Only a few years, or even people who were around the time of the Prophet, who lived there because they lived far away, right? Maybe they were in Yemen, or maybe they were in Sham, and they didn't have a chance to come and see the Prophet. They also had that same arzu and that same desire in their hearts. So when people would come from all over, when they would come to Medina, they'd come to and they'd ask the people, the Ahlul Medina, they'd say, listen, tell us about Rasulullah. Tell us what he was like. What did he look like? What did he sound like? How did he act? At a certain time, around this time, they would come and they would say, if you want to see Rasulullah, there's a person, go see the son of Hussein, go see Ali al-Akbar. Because he is 100% the Shabi of Rasulullah. If you look at him, it's as if you're looking at Rasulullah. This is how much they say. People would confirm all this. They say, if you see the face of Ali al-Akbar, it's as if you've seen the face of Rasulullah. Imagine if we could have had that blessing before. Somebody asked the fourth Imam, what was the greatest, Imam Sajjad, what was the greatest musibah for you? We know the famous line that he said 3 times, Sham, Sham, Sham. Others asked him, Yabna Rasulullah, we know that Sham was the greatest musibah for you, but what was Hussein's greatest musibah? What was the greatest musibah for your father? He said, out of all the shuhada, the musibah which was greatest for my father, my Hussein, was when he lost my brother Ali al-Akbar. He said, this was the toughest thing for Hussein. He said, the way that my father Hussein, the way that he went to the body of Akbar was not like he had went to the body and ran to the body of anybody else. He cried differently, he felt differently. The way that he screamed in pain was different. Someone at Karbala said, who was there, who was present, said that he swears, he says, Wallah, I swear that the way that Hussein cried for Akbar is nothing like the way he cried for anyone else. They say that he cried so loudly and with so much passion and pain that even the enemies began to feel the pain and they began to cry as well. This is how much love Hussein had for his son Akbar. On the way to Karbala, as we all know, Imam Hussein alayhi salam has a dream. And he sees that his qafila, everyone there is going towards Shahada. They all will get their daraja and their maqam and their station in heaven. So he told his son Akbar, who was like his advisor. Again, a point of advice for our fathers here: keep your children, your sons with you like an advisor. Look at how Hussein raises his son. Look at how he is confiding in his son. He shares with him the dream. How does Akbar respond? He says, Ya Abata, aw alasna ala al-haq. Abata, Baba, aren't we doing what's right? Aren't we on haq? And he says, Bala. Ya Bunay, of course we're doing what's right. We're on the right path. And then he says those famous lines, and it doesn't matter whether death comes to us or we go to death. It doesn't make a difference. This is how Hussein trains his children. On the morning of Ashura, when Imam Hussein, one of his major jobs there is to do itmam al-hujjah to everybody who is there. He has to give them the chance to turn back and turn away from fighting against him, fighting against the Bani Hashim, fighting against the Ahlul Bayt. When he wants to give this one hujjah, he says, okay, maybe they don't recognize us as Ahlul Bayt, but they still recognize Rasulullah. So he says to his son Ali al-Akbar, go out and recite the adhan for Fajr. Maybe when they hear the voice of Rasulullah one more time, maybe they'll change their minds and maybe they'll turn back. Even the voice of Ali al-Akbar sounded like the voice of Rasulullah. After they hear the voice of Rasulullah, then they won't have any excuse left over. This is how much the Ma'soom Hussein is showing us. This is how much effort we need to put in and take people out of darkness and towards up. Do you know, mu'mineen, mu'minat, you know this? Whenever somebody would come and wanted to fight, they'd have to get permission from Hussein first, right? Abbas would come and ask, Mawla, give me permission, let me go and fight. Hur came and asked for permission. On, Muhammad, Qasim, everyone came to Hussein and said, give us permission, give us ijazah, let us go out and fight on your behalf. And Hussein refused each and every one of them. But for his son, Ali al-Akbar, who is the representative of Bani Hashim, Hussein himself comes to his son Ali al-Akbar and says, Taqaddam ya bunayya, you go forward, you are my wakil, you are my representative, you go forward and fight on our behalf. But before you go, bunayya, before you go, make sure you say al-wada to the women, make sure you say wada to your mother, and make sure you say al-wada to Zainab before you go. When he comes to the tents of the women to say his farewell and his wada, his final salam, he tries to leave. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, you know what happens here? One of the witnesses at Karbala says, when I saw that this son of Hussein Akbar tried to leave, it's as if it was a janazah happening. He said, it's as if a body, a janazah was coming in and out. He said, what did you mean? He said, whenever the tent flaps would open up and Akbar would try to come out, they would pull him back in and the tent flaps would close again. Every time he would take a step out, somebody else would grab him and pull him back in. He would take one step out and his mother Layla would grab him and pull him back in. He would take a step out, Zainab would grab him and pull him back in. He would take a step out, Sakina would grab him, Ruqayya would grab him and pull him back in. Bhai, Akhi, don't go yet. We want to do ziyarat of Rasulullah one more time. Stay with us for a little bit longer. Finally, the woman gave ijazah and they said, now you can go, we've done our final ziyarah. Imam Hussein grabs his son, he ties an amama on his head, he kisses his forehead, he gets ready to send him out. As Akbar starts going forth out to the battlefield, Hussein begins crying, he raises his hand and makes a dua to Allah. Allahumma ushhid ala ha'ula'i al-qawm faqad baraza ilayhim ashbah an-nas khulqan wa khalqan wa maddatan bi rasulik wa kunna id ashtaqna ziyaratan nabiyyik nadarna ilay. Ya Allah, bear witness against this qawm, these people who are against us. Somebody is going before them, in front of them, who is just like your Rasul, just like your Nabi. His akhlaq is the Nabi's akhlaq. His features are the features of the Nabi. His speech is the features of the Nabi. When I wanted to do the ziyarat of your Nabi, of your Rasul, I would just look at my son Akbar. Allah, keep witness to this. Akbar finally makes his way out to the battlefield. He begins fighting the enemies. They say 120 men, he kills instantly. Umar ibn Sa'd now sends one of his champion fighters. Hussein sees that his hungry and thirsty son is fighting against this giant warrior. He knows that Akbar is destined to become shaheed, but still, this is a father watching his eldest son fight. What can he do? He has a wish in his heart. What does he do? He asks one of the companions with him. He says, send a message to Layla. He doesn't say anything else. He says, just send a message to Layla to make dua. He doesn't say anything else. He says, tell the mother of Akbar to make dua for my son. You know what this dua was? What does Hussein want? You know what he wants. And when Layla gets this message, she knows exactly what Hussein wants. She comes outside, she makes dua, says, Ya man radda Yusuf ila Yaqub, ridda ilayya waladi, Ya Allah, you're the one who brought Yusuf back to Yaqub. Bring my walad, bring my son back to me. Allah answers the dua of a mother every time. Ali Akbar, in the middle of battle after killing these enemies, runs back to his father and mother and makes ziyarat one more time to them. And when he comes with pride, he says, Abada, Abada, do you see me? Did you see how I did jihad? This is a son looking for the appraisal and the praise of his father. He says, Marhaba, Marhaba ya bunayya. Yes, I saw you. You did a great job. This is wonderful. But then now he has to break Hussein's heart. He says, Abada, al-atash qad qatalani. Al-atash qad qatalani. Wa iqlal al-hadid ijhalani. Fahay shurbatin mimma baba abata. This thirst is killing me, and this sword is starting to feel really heavy. I can't carry it anymore. If only I had a little bit of water, then I could kill even more enemies on your behalf. Hussein begins to cry. Fathers here, do you know how much it breaks your heart when you can't answer your son's dua, when your son wants something from you and you can't take care of it? Hussein can't answer the final dua of his son. When Hussein opens his mouth, he shows Akbar his tongue. Akbar says, Baba, your tongue is drier than Instead, Hussein takes his ring and he gives it to Akbar. He says, put this in your mouth. Maybe this will quench your thirst a little bit. That coolness of the steel of the ring will quench your thirst. Akbar gets on his horse again. He begins and sets out for battle one last time. As he starts going, he hears somebody following him from behind. He's not sure, is this an enemy? Is this somebody from my camp? What's happening? He turns around and he sees Hussein following him from behind. He says, Abata, he's surprised this ta'ajjub. Abata, you already gave me ijazah for jihad before. Why are you following me? Why are you here to stop me? He says, Bunayya, you've never become a father. You don't know what I'm feeling right now. You don't know how difficult it is for a father to see his son go off for the last time. He's like, Ya Ali, Ya my son, Bunayya, as you go out, I have one last request. Just go a few steps, stop, turn around and look back at me and keep doing this so I can do ziyarat of you, do ziyarat of Rasulullah one last time. Akbar goes out, he begins fighting one last time. A man comes out from Umar ibn Sa'd's army. He says that may all the sins of the Arabs be on my nafs, on my soul, if I don't kill this boy and cause Hussein the greatest amount of grief possible. He takes a spear and he drives it through the chest of Akbar, and he drives it in a way that that spear and part of it gets stuck into the chest of Akbar. Another enemy comes from behind. He hits Akbar on the top of the head. Now because of this, blood starts pouring down and makes Akbar dizzy. Now this blood is pouring down from the head of Akbar, and he loses so much blood that he starts to feel dizzy now. In order to regain his balance, he bends down and tries to hold onto the head of the horse for balance. But when he does this, the blood from his head trickles down and goes down onto the face and the head and the eyes of the horse. And now the horse can't see anything. The horse is blind. So what does this horse do? It goes running straight into the enemy camp, Umar ibn Sa'd. And when the enemies see this, these cowards, these mar'oon, take this opportunity and they begin striking Akbar with everything they have from all different sides. Now with no more strength left in his body, Akbar falls on the sands of Karbala. He turns his face towards the camp of his father and he says, Abata, Abata, alayka minni salam. Abata adarikni. Mu'minat, you know that Imam Hussein wasn't able to come right away. Akbar thought, maybe my father's not coming to me right away. Maybe because he's scared. Maybe he feels bad that he doesn't have water for me to bring. Let me tell him something. And he says again, Abata, Hada Jaddi Qad Saka. Hada Jaddi Qad Sakani. Abata, Baba, my grandfather Rasulullah is here. He's quenching my thirst. He's giving me water. Don't worry about this anymore. You don't have to cry for me. I'm not thirsty anymore. Just come to me, Baba. Someone at the camp, they saw Hussein running toward Akbar. And when he saw them, sometimes he was up, other times he was down on the sands of Karbala. Then he would get up and then he would be down again, up and down over and over. And he didn't understand what was happening. It's because he didn't see what was happening to Hussein's heart. They say that Hussein was crying so much, his heart was so broken that as he was running, he kept tripping on the sands of Karbala over and over and over. It's as if the sands of Karbala were saying that a father should never have to see his son in this situation and was trying to pull Hussein down every time. When finally Hussein reaches the body of his son Akbar, they say, the ulama say that there's three things that caused Hussein so much grief and broke his heart. The first is that he saw his son Akbar writhing back and forth in pain, shaking violently. They say number two is that he was holding something in his chest, trying to hide something. And the third is that somebody was already there. Hussein says, Ya Zainab, what are you doing here? What are you doing here, Zainab? You don't belong here. Zainab on the body of Akbar screaming, Wa walada, wa. Hussein takes Zainab and says, Zainab, this is not a place for you. Takes her back to the tents. Mu'mineen, you know, when Hussein went to the bodies of the different shuhada, when he went to Khur, he sat down next to him and he tried to console him. He took Khur's head and he put it on his lap. When he went to Habib's body, he did the same thing. To Muhammad Abbas, he went to them, he sat down next to them, took their head very nicely, put it on his lap. But when he went to the body of his son, when Hussein went to the body of his son Akbar, they say that he jumped on top of the he collapsed on top of him and he put his cheek next to the cheek of Akbar. And he began crying, Bunayya, Bunayya, this world has lost all meaning until after I lose you. This Akbar says to Hussein, he's like, Baba, and he shows him what's going on. He shows him that spear that's stuck in his chest. He says, Baba, this pain is killing me. Is there anything you can do for me? This pain is unbearable. Now Hussein tries to figure out, how can I end this pain? How can I end this? Take this spear out of the chest of Akbar. Every time Hussein tries to pull the spear out of Akbar's chest, Akbar's body kept lifting up over and over again, and Akbar keeps screaming, Abata, Abata, this pain is killing me, do something. Finally, Hussein musters all the strength that he can. He takes one of his knees, he braces himself on the sand of Karbala. He takes his other knee. You have to listen to this final. He takes his other knee, he puts it and braces himself on the body of his son Akbar. He takes one hand and braces it on the body of Akbar. He takes one hand and he grabs the spear. And I don't know what he did here. Maybe he turns his face towards Najaf now. He begins taking it. Ya Ali Mad. Ya Abata. He pulls the spear out from the chest of Akbar. When he pulls out the chest, when it comes out, the ruh of Akbar comes out along with it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi. رضا بقضائه وتسليما. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. Ya Allah, we ask you by the right of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, by the right of the Shuhada of Islam, by the right of all the Shuhada of Karbala, we ask you by the right for the Shafa'a and Tawassum of Ali Akbar alayhi salam. We ask you to raise our youth, help us raise our youth like Ali Akbar, make us as brave, as mu'min, as much iman as Ali Akbar had. We ask you to give us that same tawfiq, to establish our identity so that we don't care whether death comes to us or whether we go towards death. Allah, make us stay in the ibadat of Allah all the time, strengthen our iman, get us closer to you, make sure our actions are always in your favor, and give us that tawfiq and that ability to become the true Shia, the true supporters, defenders of the Imam of the time. Wa akhiru da'wan, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ को भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर अरमान था पहनाऊंगी पोशाक शानी अरमान था पहनाऊंगी पोशाक शानी अफसोस के रासाई न तुझो रोए जवानी कैसा मुक़द्दर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती ये माँ भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर इतना गुज़रा ठहरो तुम्हें दूल्हा बना दूं इतना गुज़रा ठहरो तुम्हें दूल्हा बना दूं बस एक झलक चेहरे की सुबह को दिखा दूं बेचैन की ख्वाहिश हाय हाय अली अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माँ भरी मैया से लिपट कर हाय हाय अली अकबर
برس پال کے پروان چڑھایا 18 برس پال کے پروان چڑھایا بوگے والا ہے میرا خون میں نہایا یہ کیا ہوا دل پر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتی یہ محبوبی میاں سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ماں تیری جدائی میں بھلا کیسے جیے گی ماں تیری جدائی میں بھلا کیسے جیے گی مر جائے گی صغرا جو خبر تیری سنے گی اب کیا کروں جی کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر کہتی بڑی میاں سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر Just to حسین کر بلا سے نہ سکے واپس حسین کر بلا سے نہ سکے سر کو کٹا کے دین نبی کا بچا سکے سر کو کٹا کے دین نبی کا واپس حسین کر بلا سے نہ سکے واپس حسین کر بلا سے نہ سکے قرضوں کے آخری ہے زیارت رسول کی قرضوں کے آخری ہے زیارت رسول کی شاید کہ لوٹ کر علی اکبر نہ آ سکے شاید کہ لوٹ کر علی اکبر نہ آ سکے واپس حسین کر بلا سے نہ آ سکے علی اکبر سا بیٹا شاہ کو رب نے دیا اس عطائے کبریا پر کربلا نے دی صدا ماں اور علی اکبر کی ماں اور علی اکبر کی ماں اور علی اکبر کی ماں اس کا ماتھا چومتی تھی لیلا بار بار اس کا چہرہ دیکھ کر کہتی تھی اے پروردگار
بہار زندگی ہے، یہ میرے گھر کی بہار، یہ میری پہلی تمنا، یہ میرے دل کا ترانہ، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، گھٹنیوں چلنے لگا جس وقت ان کا شیر خوار، صاف کرتی اپنے آنچل سے وہ اس کی ہے گزار، اے خدا نواز کا چہرہ بچے کے ہار، چلتے چلتے جب وہ تھکتا پشت دے کرتی سوار، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، سب فنون حرب سکھلاتے تھے عباس علی، صحن پہ کرسی بچھا کر ماں بھی اکثر دیکھتی، مشق کے دوران ایک دن یوں ہی ایسے ہی آئی، چھو گئی سینے سے لیلا، بے غشی تاری ہوئی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، ایک وہ دن تھا کہ جب برسی ذرا سی چھوٹی، ام لیلا کانپ اٹھی اور غشی تاری ہوئی، ایک یہ دن ہے میدان کربلا دیکھے کوئی، ہے جگر کے پار نیزا اور ماں ہے دیکھتی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، کیا خبر تھی لیلا کو وہ دن بھی آئے گا، کیا ہمار مان دل کا دل میں ہی آئے گا، لاش قاسم کی طرح ٹکڑوں میں دل بٹ جائے گا، نوجوان کی لاش پہ صحرا سجایا جائے گا، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، ام لیلا دل سنبھالو عرش سے آئی صدا، برچھیوں کی سمت جاتا ہے تمہارا محل کا، یوں کرو رخ ساتھ کے جیسے وہ سواب خاک میں مل جائے گی لیلا شبیہ ہے مصطفیٰ، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، کس طرح ریحان ہو اس گفتگو کا اب بیان، عورتیں جب شام کی کہتی تھی لے کر چکیاں، جس جوان کا لو کے نیزہ پر ہوا ہے سرعیاں، اس طرح سے پہل عرب مر گئی ہو اس کی ماں، اور علی اکبر کی ماں، یا حسین 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 یا حسین،
بنی ہاشم میاری جوانان بنی ہاشم میاری، علی راحت در خیمه سامی، جوانان بنی هاشم میاری، جوانان بنی هاشم میاری، علی راحت در خیمه سامی، علی راحت در بسپاری بگوید مادرش لیلا بیاید بگوید مادرش لیلا بیاید نباشد مادرش لیلا نیاید نباشد بنده اکبر نماید جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی علی را بر سر خیمه بسپاری علی را در سر خیمه بسپاری بگویم دشت زینب بیاید بگویم دشت زینب بیاید علی را بر سر خیمه بسپارد علی را بر سر خیمه بسپارد خدا داند که من طاقت ندارم خدا داند که من طاقت ندارم علی را بر سر خیمه بسپارد جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی علی را بر در خیمه بسپاری علی را بر در خیمه بسپاری زمین کربلا موجود حسین زمین کربلا موجود حسین در اکبر به دامانه حسین در اکبر به دامانه حسین زمین کربلا موجود حسین زمین کربلا موجود حسین سر اکبر سر اکبر دامان حسین است جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی علی را بر در خیمه رسانید غم مرگ دوزد آتش به جانم چرا رفتی که من تنها بمانم چرا رفتی که من تنها بمانم جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی جوانان بنی هاشم بیایی علی را بر در خیمه بسپاری علی را بر در خیمه بسپاری غم مرگ دوزد آتش به جانم غم مرگ دوزد آتش به جانم چرا رفتی که من تنها بمانم چرا رفتی که من تنها بمانم یا حسین 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 یا حسین.
This is for al-Banin. Repeat after me. ويله يا البنين
ويله يا البنين ويله يا البنين
وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم وويلا يوم البنين
أنت أم الحزن أم أم البنين لك قلب يستقيمه الحنين صاغه الله لمقطع الوتين فسار الصدق به هو الدمين أنت أفداها فيه كوكب أنت أم للحسين وأبوه أودعت فيك جراح زينب مضرماتهن نار الخيام
وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين
بيتك المسجد بيت المصطفى وإلى مرافقه والوفاء وإليه الروح والقدس هفا لا في المنهج تراب القدم لك ناح الصحو يا أم العلا كل عين لك ناح في الملا لك تسعى كل يوم كربلاء معها يسعى صريخ العلقمي
وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين
شبلك العباس مقطع اليدين راح يهدي قمرا من الحسين شبلك العباس مقطع اليدين راح يهدي قمرا من الحسين وبنوك طهر للحق سيوف هم ليوف تتحدى الحدود فتية ساروا إلى وادي الطفوف ليواسوا شبل فخر الأمم
وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين
زمزم تحكي دما مروة آسفا ضج عليه مشرقان صرحك الشامخ في كل زمان مشعل يفزع قلب الظالمين حكمة منك وعدل الكليم أنت يا زوج الصراط المستقيم حكمة منك وعدل الكليم أنت يا زوج الصراط المستقيم وأتى بابك لقمان الحكيم يستقيم منك معاني الحكم
وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين وويلا يوم البنين
حسين يا 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 حسين
وعلي أكبر 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 لاش اکبر پہ شاہ جب پہنچے دل کو ہاتھوں سے تھام کر بولے تیری فرقت میں علی اکبر آگ دل میں میرے لگا دی ہے آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے میرا لگا بجھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر لاش اکبر پہ شاہ جب پہنچے دل کو ہاتھوں میں تھام کر بولے تیری فرقت نے علی اکبر آگ دل میں میرے لگا دی ہے آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے میرا لگا بجھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر تو ہے قیل جوانی ہے بیٹا باپ تیرا ضعیف ہے کتنا نور آنکھوں کا ہو گیا رخسار مجھ کو آتا نظر نہیں کہ ماں لے کے خیموں میں جاؤں میں کیسے لے کے خیموں میں جاؤں میں کیسے جاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر جس نے 18 سال پالا تھا کیسے دیکھے گی وہ تیرا لاشا تیری شادی کا تھا جسے ارماں کیسے جھیلے گی وہ تیرا صدمہ تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں کیسے تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لاشا بتاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا اکبر اکبر میرا شہر ہمارا اکبر دیکھ آیا ہے پاکی دے سبلا راہ تکتی ہے وہ دکھی پہلا تم کو بیمار نے بلایا ہے وعدہ سبلا کیوں بلا ڈالا یہ دل سے لگاؤں میں کیسے یہ دل سے لگاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لگاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر بھائی بہنوں کا حال جب رشتہ جس کا ثانی کہیں نہیں ملتا تو کہ صغرا نے یہ لکھا اکبر ایک دکھیا علاج رکھ لینا مر گیا تو بتاؤں میں کیسے مر گیا تو بتاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لاشا بتاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر اکبر میرا سحر یارا اکبر لطف جینے میں اب کہاں اکبر دل سے اٹھتی ہے یہ خدا اکبر تو بے عاشور دی تھی جو تم نے سن لائے وہ اکبر تیری صورت بھلاؤں میں کیسے تیری صورت بھلاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر اعلیٰ اکبر وقت غم کا محال ہے بیٹا دیکھو کیسے یہ زخم سینے کا میں تو پردیس میں اکیلا ہوں دیکھ کر زخم کیا کروں بدلا اس پہ مرہم لگاؤں میں کیسے اس پہ مرہم لگاؤں میں کیسے تیرا نشہ اٹھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر اعلیٰ اکبر اکبر میرا شہر اعلیٰ اکبر ایسی غربت میں ہوں میرا ہے ایسی غربت میں ہوں نہیں موڑو میں ہوں تنہا مجھے نہ یوں چھوڑو کیا گزرتی ہے باپ کے دل پر منگتا دل یوں نہیں توڑو اپنی غربت بتاؤں میں کیسے اپنی غربت بتاؤں میں کیسے تیرا نشہ بتاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر اعلیٰ اکبر اکبر تیرا شہر اعلیٰ جس نے 18 سال پالا تھا کیسے دیکھے کہ وہ تیرا لاشا تیری شادی کا تھا جسے ارمان کیسے جیلے کہ وہ تیرا صدمہ تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں کیسے تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں کیسے تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے اکبر میرا شہر اعلیٰ اکبر اکبر میرا شہر اعلیٰ اکبر آئے علی 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 اکبر
صلوات. The answer is بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد. بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد. اگر به خیمه آید عمویم اگر به خیمه آید عمویم من دیگر از آب حرفی نگویم من دیگر از آب حرفی نگویم بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد 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 سقای طفلان جان برادر سقای طفلان جان برادر دستت جدا شد حسن ز پیکر دستت جدا شد حسن ز پیکر بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد 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 از جا برادر برخیز و بنگر از جا برادر برخیز و بنگر عکسش نکانی عکسش نکانی عکسش نکانی غش کرده از من بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد بابا ز میدان آمد و سقا نیامد ای کاش از اول من مرده بودم ای کاش از اول من مرده بودم تا نامی از آب نبرده بودم تا نامی از آب نبرده بودم دیدم عمویم بشکست دلمون، دیدم عمویم بشکست دلمون، هنگام رفتن از من خجل بود، هنگام رفتن از من خجل بود. بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد، بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد، بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد. سقای طفلان میره سپاهم، سقای طفلان میره سپاهم، بودی برادر پشت و پناهم، بودی برادر پشت و پناهم. حسن جدا شد آن دستهایت، حسن جدا شد آن دستهایت، در خیمت افطار در انتظارت، در خیمت افطار در انتظارت. بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد، بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد، بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد، بابا ز میدان آمد و سرخان نیامد. صلوات محمدی. We want a two group of circle. Actually, I'm gonna read it for you guys slowly, so if you guys can repeat it with me, it will be just like 5 minutes. So yeah, and if you guys make me like two groups of two circle, okay? So one team is gonna say one thing, and one team is gonna say one thing, and we will end them there. Okay? Okay. So I'm gonna read it slowly for you guys, so you guys can understand. ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. سقای حسین سید و سالار نیامد، سقای حسین سید و سالار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. سقای حسین سید و سالار نیامد، سقای حسین سید و سالار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. سقای حسین سید و سالار نیامد، سقای حسین سید و سالار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد. ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، ای اهل حرم میر و علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد، علمدار نیامد.
الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، لا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء والضعفاء السلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن يا قاطع البرهان يا إمام الإنس والجان ويا خليفة الرحمن عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك. والسلام عليك وعلى آبائك الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أمك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Two announcements. Parking, please cooperate with our staff who are outside so that we can park in the school. There was a police cop out there. I don't want people to be getting tickets if you are, going to park next to the road or on the grass. So don't want to park there. Please, for next 3 days, park at the. If you have women, drop them near door and then go there. As Maulana said today in his speech, your donations, charity, please give it to our center so that we can have more programs. We can have better parking positions. So please bring in next 3 days, bring your checkbook, bring your $20, $100, then give it to them. But Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.